Welcome to Type Tune Tint. I'm Tom Kranz. Today's guest had a near-death experience that inspired her to write a children's book. Jay Logan is a financial compliance officer who discovered her talent for writing after a difficult time when she and her husband had to tell their young children about her illness without telling them too much. Jay's book, Mommy Doesn't Look Sick, represents an approach that worked for her and opportunities for kids to be involved without overloading them with scary details. Jay, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You squeezed me in before you went to work, right?
Yes, I did.
Excellent. Yeah, us retired guys, we're usually morning people, but I've always been a morning person, so this actually works great, and I'll definitely get you off on time here. So, the reason that we're here, as we are, and for all these episodes in Type Tune Tint, is to talk about kind of everyday people who have creativity and a talent that was either sublimated or they didn't know they had, or they were inspired in some way or another to express themselves either in writing, art, photography, music. And first of all, Mommy Doesn't Look Sick. This is your first book, correct?
Correct.
All right.
It's the first published book. I've been writing for a while, but it was the first time I was brave enough to hit the button.
Excellent. Yeah. And as I've seen with many children's books, and I noted this to a friend of mine at the Book Expo, you had a lot of interest. I saw a lot of people at your table, and children's book authors seem to be, it's got to be the top, if not the number one genre out there. I hope your book is selling because it looked like it was pretty popular. But I find that, like you, many other parents, teachers, adults are inspired by an event or a certain thing that made you want to write something to make an event or an experience easier for kids. Let's talk about, first of all, just some quick bio information. So you live in Edison now. Where are you from originally, and kind of what's your story to where you got to where you are today?
So I was initially raised in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, way before it became the fabulous neighborhood that it is now. I probably couldn't afford to walk down the block. And then we moved to Brooklyn, and I spent most of my life in Brooklyn. I consider myself a Brooklyn girl through and through, even though I live in Edison now.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a compliance officer at a financial institution.
All right. What does that mean in English, please? I mean, I kind of know what it means, but
right.
You kind of make sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted legally.
Yes. So we just make sure that the organization is following the letter of the regulations, which change regularly. So we're getting constant updates, whether it be a stricter rule, a replacement rule, and we just have to make sure that the bank is adhering to it and how they're doing it.
And so that's why it's a full-time job, because those rules are constantly changing. And I'm guessing there's a lot of them, right?
Yes, tons.
So how did you get into that line of work? Did you go to school for finance?
No, I fell into it. So after 9/11, my last day of work at my previous job was the Friday before September 11th. And then I was out of work for months because the economy was, not doing great. So I finally applied for a job as a security guard, and they called me up and said, "Would you like to be an admin at a bank?" I was like, "Oh, okay, sure."
Wow. Okay.
And then I fell into it after a year and a half in the building operations department. I moved over to compliance, and then eventually fell in love with it because it's kind of fun piecing the puzzles together of, what we've done and what we're going to do and what the government is doing. And so at times it can be really interesting, and I'm kind of a nerd for liking it like that. But it grew on me, and I've stuck around for over 20 years.
Wow, that's cool. So it's nice to like what you do, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you're going to take us back a few years now. So the story that intrigued me, and that was the inspiration for Mommy Doesn't Look Sick, has to do with, however, take us back to how many years ago this was, to a day and a time when you suddenly weren't feeling so great.
So there was this week in July 9 years ago where I thought I was having stomach issues. And, just like most people, I said, okay, it's stomach issues. It's probably a virus. It'll go away in 24 hours. And, now we're at 48 hours and 72 hours, and it's only getting worse. And my stomach is swelling as if I was at this point 10 months pregnant, really. Nothing fit me except for this one horrendous skirt that I think I've since destroyed. And I told my husband, okay, it's time. Let's go to the emergency room. And he said, okay, let's go. So we go to the emergency room and they said, well, we're going to do a scan on your stomach. And they did. And when they did that, they went a little bit higher than just the stomach. They found a clot in my IVC vein. So that's the intravena cava. And so then they said, all right, we're going to do a full chest X right now that we found the clot. We want to make sure everything else is fine. They do the full CT scan of my chest and come back and they say, well, we found a clot in your lung. And my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, that's a death sentence. We've heard the news, we've seen people pass away from that. And then they come back a couple of moments later. They're like, yeah, well, we found a couple of clots. And we're like, we have questions. They said, no, we're still assessing. We'll be back. They came back and they were like, we see several clots. And we're like, is it making friends? I don't understand what's happening here, And then they came back and they finally told us that there were a lot of clots in both of my lungs.
Hmm.
And that was
Wow.
their technical term, a lot. Uh,
Okay.
so my husband and I were just completely freaked out. But at this point, I was now on morphine, so I couldn't really react to anything because of the pain and the drugs. And my husband turns to the doctor and says, we have two young kids at home. Should we bring them by just in case? To which the doctor immediately replied, yes,
Oh
and brought
boy.
over a patient advocate for to come and help him organize bringing the children over.
So this was about in case you die.
Yes.
That's what the
To say
just in
goodbye.
case was. Yikes. Okay.
Well, I honestly thought that they thought it was imminent. So
Really? Okay.
yeah. So the kids came, and being the mom that I am, I had to think of a way to say goodbye to them without saying goodbye to them and traumatizing them. So I just pushed every single bit of mom advice that I could at them and just made them promise to love each other and always be kind. And then they left, but they were with my parents and my sister. So it was probably like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And
Sure.
even now talking about it, I get a little choked up. But yeah, then they left and we didn't know if I was going to make it through the night. They didn't even want me moving because of all the clots.
And how old
Uh,
were they at the time, your kids?
4 and 9.
Okay. All right. So there you are in the hospital overnight, thinking death may be near. What happens next?
So the next day they come in the afternoon and they say, all right, well, we're probably going to have to airlift you to NYU for an emergency liver transplant. And my husband and I looked at each other. We're like, I thought there were blood clots in my lungs. I don't know why I need a liver transplant right now. And so we then spent the rest of that day and that evening trying to get answers, which didn't come until the next day when they said, all right, we figured out what you have and what's wrong, and we think we can help you. And that's when they told us that I have Budd-Chiari syndrome, which is a rare liver disease. And in addition to that, I have three clotting factors. So I have polycythemia vera and thrombocytosis, and then I have a JAK2 mutation. So all three of those things cause clots. And then on top of it, my liver, the veins in and out of my liver are occluded. So, they're not completely blocked, but they're just very, very slow in the transfer of blood.
And so this is all, I mean, this is all genetic.
They said it could be, but no one in my family has had it.
But
They said that
you didn't do anything. There's nothing environmentally or diet
no,
wise or anything that caused this. It just happened to you.
it just happened.
Lucky
And
you.
yes,
Wow.
yes, like, and that's that kind of been my medical uh method is just I come in with one symptom and it's something completely different and it takes them a while to figure it out and they just look at me like, what is wrong with you? Why are you backwards?
So, all right. So at this point now, I guess I'm sensing that the death sentence has kind of been lifted, or not really.
Yes. So
Okay.
they figured that with the massive amounts of blood thinners they had me on, everything was getting better. They sent me for another x-ray. It was better. And then I was on, a pulmonologist care until they were perfectly comfortable that it wouldn't happen again. But I'm on lifelong blood thinners. So I have no real reason to clot at this moment. But those three different disorders always they pose a slight risk. So I'm constantly monitored.
So if you're on blood thinners, that means like even a little nick will bleed like forever, right?
Yes, which that reminds me of a funny story. When I first went back to work after all of this happened, I'm trying to tell one of the senior leaders, I'm back, I'm okay. I want you to know you can count on me. And while I'm talking to him, I cut myself on a manila
Yeah.
folder.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm trying to hide the copious amounts of blood that's
Uh,
falling out of my finger
yeah.
while I'm talking to this man.
Wow. Yeah, as an EMT for 22 years, I've had a lot of folks who are on Coumadin for various reasons, and yeah, even just a little pinprick, especially when they're seniors, when they're like over 75 or 80, that we pay attention to that because depending on where it is, blood loss is never a really good thing. All right, so now. Of course, I met you, what's it been, 2, 3 weeks ago. You look great. You look healthy. Does this affect your day-to-day life at all now?
Not as much as it used to. I have it mostly managed, but with the book out and me doing a lot more, whether it be promoting or out there selling, there are days where I'm just completely wiped and exhausted. And I know
Gotcha.
that, okay, I need to listen. And if I can cancel the plans for that day, I will spend a day resting and trying to just recharge.
Got it. So I notice in the book basically parallels everything that you're telling me right now, except
Mhm.
you don't go into any detail at all. And I'm sure this is, by design about what the illness is. At no point do you tell the kids, at least initially, here's what I have, here's what it's doing to me. You basically you concentrated, and I guess this is the point, on things like, I'm with you, I care about you, you guys need to take care of each other. Here's what you can do to help me, that type of thing. Is that kind of the message here?
Yes, absolutely. So I kept it, you know, high level on purpose, right? Because even before I was sick, I never had anxiety or, just the amount of stress that I feel sometimes. And so anxiety itself is a disease. And I think
Mm,
about that, right? There's so many people suffering with it these days. And then I'm Hispanic. So I think of my bloodline, right? There's diabetes, there's high blood pressure. There's just so many things that everybody battles with on a daily basis that I want it to be for everyone, that everybody can use it as a stepping stone to have that conversation. And the important message is to be honest with the kids, not scare them, right? Let them know because what their biggest thing is, am I going to see you? Are you going to be around?
sure.
And then from there, it's like, how can I help? Right? Instead of whispering behind their heads or in the next room, tell them, okay, well, this is what I need for you to do. And in the book, it's something simple, like just help me have more fun than stress. And that means in the book, it translates to cleaning their rooms, cleaning up after themselves, just being better citizens of the house. And that in itself can help any person going through anything.
So it sounds like the message is you kind of have to walk a line that on one side is being honest with the kids, but on the other side, not piling on, like, I don't know, too much honesty is probably not the right word, too much detail that they either don't need or will freak them out, right?
Correct. Give them the information that there's something they can do with instead of just, hearing a horrible diagnosis and now they're sitting with it. And in their mind, they picture it 12 times worse than it actually is. So,
Sure.
I mean, everybody knows their own children and the children in their lives that they love. Know what they're capable of understanding and give them that. Treat them with the respect of, I know that you are aware something's happening in the house. This is what's happening. I'm not feeling well. The doctor's taking care of me. This is what I need from you. And this is what you can expect from me. I've had to miss Halloween, and trick or treating was one of my favorite things with the kids, but
Mm.
the first one, I was way too exhausted. I couldn't get out of bed and take them. So I told them, and I said, well, when you come home, I need to hear every detail of the entire trip. And they sat down and they gave me every detail, and they even saved me an almond joy, which is my favorite. So,
So there's one page in the book. I'm looking for what is I guess, the highest level of detail you go into with the kids in the book. And I'm looking at this page here where by the way, the illustrations are great. Illustrations by Deborah Bender. There's a picture here of you with your daughter and your son. And one of them asks, why can't the doctor just fix you up with medicine? That's a pretty typical question of a kid, I would guess. And you answer, it's not that easy. My kind of sick is a little more complicated, and it will never really go away, but it will hide sometimes, Mom said. So that sounds like pretty much, I guess, the highest level of detail you went into, and I guess it was good enough at the time. Yeah.
Yes, and that's as they got older, they understood more. And for my daughter, it's something I have to watch out for her because this can be exasperated by birth control pills. So I have to worry about her when she's older if that's the route she chooses to take.
Hmm.
And it's just about keeping them aware of these things. And so now she's 13 and we've had these conversations and she understands more. And he's 18 and he understands a lot more. And we talk about it all the time. And they all tease me, by the way, about the paper cut. And, oh, we're going to find mom bleeding all over the floor if she gets a
Hmm.
paper cut. Give her gloves. So,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
it's a really good Halloween thing. If you give yourself a little pinprick and just let it bleed for, I don't know, 20 minutes, that kind of stuff looks worse than it is, as I found. All right. So we're going to take a little break. I'm going to engage in some shameless self-promotion here to tell folks about one of my books. When we get back, more with Jay Logan about not only when she started writing and how she did that and how long it took and all that stuff. Right back.
We failed to halt the Earth's slow death due to climate change and environmental apathy. The planet's temperature rose 7 degrees, causing epic storms, fires, droughts, and tides that ate away at our shores. Now in the year 2212, food is manufactured. Coffee and cars are illegal. The people who are left live in cubes, and the Earth is covered with bubbling lakes of a black, toxic brew. Two 23rd century rebels find a way to travel back in time to our century to stop the poisoning in its tracks and the arrogance that made it possible. Their mission is complicated by fear among their 21st century hosts and the murderous ways of one of the rebels. Read Time Travel Rescue, the sci-fi adventure called Unique and Original by Publishers Weekly. Time Travel Rescue by Tom Krantz, available on Amazon.
And we're back with author Jay Logan talking about her first book, first published book, Mommy Doesn't Look Sick. It's a children's book. And as you can guess by the title, it's about talking to kids about a family member who's got an illness going on. It offers opportunities on how to talk to young kids, especially when you've got, some going on, especially maybe something that might be a little complicated. It gives you a little bit of help on how far to go in terms of being honest with them without freaking them out. So when did you decide? Did you decide right then and there to write this, or did that happen some years later?
It happened a couple of years later, but certainly not very recently. It's something that I've been sitting on for a while, and I cannot draw at all. And so I'm glad that you mentioned Deborah Bender. What I requested was that she draw the characters to look like my family because it is us, it's our story. And so I sent her pictures, and she just did an amazing job. Where people
Hmm.
pick it up and they're like, "Wait a minute, this is you," or "This is I'm pointing at my children. Isn't this you?" And I love that
So
because it's kind of my love letter.
she did the artwork first.
So I wrote most of it. She did the artwork, and then I tweaked it to go with the artwork.
Okay, yeah, I've interviewed a couple other authors who the last a very similar author who wrote for a similar reason as you, Yona Diamond Dansky. She's also an artist, so she did her own illustrations. And I'm always and then a couple of years ago, I interviewed a teacher who wrote a book, and she's also an artist. It always interests me on, do you do the pictures first? Do you write first? Do you adapt one to do the other? And in the case of the artist, she and her husband actually wrote while and did the pictures at the same time, which I'm not sure if that's harder or easier, but I guess having pictures gives you a good kind of frame of reference. You can write to pictures. I mean, that's what we do in TV. We write to pictures, right? And how did you know Deborah Bender? Was she a friend, or where did you find her?
She's a friend of a friend. So my husband and I, we weren't sure how to find an illustrator, and I was worried about scams. So we went to our resources, and he has a friend who is an amazing artist, but he doesn't do people. He just does landscapes.
Uh-huh.
So he recommended Deborah. And
Oh, sweet.
then, yeah, and his name is Daniel, which I always promised him that I will never forget him. So
So when did you how did you physically do this? Did you did you like sit down at a desk and do this, or did you do it physically did you write, and like, did you do it in chunks, or did you do it all at once? I think writers are interested in how other people do that.
So in my home office, because of COVID and we all have to work from home for a while, I have one desk for my day job and one desk for my writing.
Oh.
And I sit at my writing desk and I start to type away. And sometimes, because I'm a writer and my mind wanders, I will get lost in some Google search that I did to clarify something, and then I'll come back to it again. So it was a lot of those. And I do try to minimize my Google searches when I'm really focused and writing, but it's easy because my brain is always just wandering
So you have
and
a short
thinking about
attention
things.
span? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, maybe sometimes.
I can identify. I hear you. If that's the case. So when I wrote, was it my second book, maybe? I found myself at my day job, at my regular job. I was a communications director at an assisted living company. And unlike the news business, there's not like a constant flow of stress and stuff to do. I had some downtime most days, especially after 2 o'clock. I would actually tap out sometimes a page or a couple pages at my job, as long as it didn't interfere with my job. So I did that. I also did quite a bit of writing, as I do today, in my den in front of the TV watching Seinfeld reruns. I don't know how I do that, but I do. And then sometimes I actually do shut the door and I sit in a quiet when I'm stuck, like I kind of am now in the book I'm writing now, and try to think through plot lines and whatnot. How long did it take you to do?
I would say about 4 months to get the wording down, probably an additional 6 to find Deborah. And then it was just the reworking and, we would do Zoom. She's based out of Buffalo. So we would do Zoom meetings at least once a week and go over what she's done so far and make any edits that we needed. And so I think the full picture with all the editing and everything back and forth probably took well over a year.
Okay.
And then it was just the stress of hitting that publish button.
Yeah.
You almost feel like you need permission to hit it.
I know.
And
I mean,
it's like, all right, I'm just hitting it. That's it. Let's just get it out there in the world.
and you have did you self-publish this? Do you have a publisher? How'd you do that?
I've self-published.
What venue did you use?
Amazon?
Oh, okay. So are you writing something else? I noticed on the back of your book, you've got this little logo, Kids That Care Books. It's like a brand. Does that mean you have
It
more
is.
books on the way, or what's that all about?
So I do. I have holiday cookies coming out in November, and it's about sharing the holidays with different backgrounds. So it's not just Christmas, although I do have an Italian Christmas and a Hispanic Christmas mentioned in it. And then there's Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa. I went into Diwali celebration and Bodhi Day. And it's just about learning from each other's background, which is something that I did in elementary school and I think is missing today. So I just said, you know what? This were things that I remembered from growing up, and I want other kids to see that and learn that and appreciate each other.
When do you think that's coming out?
That should be November.
Oh,
It's sitting with the illustrators now, a different illustrator.
oh, sweet.
I wanted to try a different one for this time, and they should have it back to me by the end of this month. So,
Do you have ideas for other books as well?
for children's books, I have stuff I'm thinking about, but I have also started, and I'm probably a third of the way through an actual fiction, a science fiction novel.
Ah,
I just have to get back into that, but I will as soon as I'm done promoting the holiday book this year. And then
got it. Yeah, I've
January
written.
comes, I can just focus on that because I love aliens and I've been dying to get back to that one.
That's cool. Yeah, I've written 2 sci-fi novels, and they were my favorite ones to write because I liked science fiction since I was a little kid when I watched Lost in Space when I was like 8. You're probably too young to even know what the hell I'm talking about, but
I know what that is.
all right, fine. I'll be looking forward to that if and when you ever get around to writing it.
I will, and I will definitely let you know when I do. And
Yes.
then just to touch again on that brand, my goal is for it not to just be me that writes books under that brand. I would love to welcome other authors to use it if they're books are absolutely about sending the message of empathy and understanding and creating better citizens of
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great mission, I must say. So, where can we tell us every place we can buy Mommy Doesn't Look Sick?
So it's available on Amazon. Absolutely. There is a link to Amazon on my website, which is kidsthatcarebooks.com. Another page on that site. I own both websites, but it goes to the same landing, I assure you. But if you can only remember J Logan, you can go to jlogan.com and you'll find the link there as well.
All right, and Jay is
And
spelled Jae, Logan, common spelling.
yes. And then you can follow me on social media at J Logan on
Okay.
Facebook and on Instagram.
All right, and folks, all that information will be in the description of this podcast that you'll find on the Type Tune Tint website and on the Buzzsprout site. So, Jay, I really appreciate you joining me early in the morning here. Now you have to go off to work. But since I'm retired, I will not be going off to work. Just saying. I hope you have a great day. And thanks again for joining me. And I wish you a lot of luck with the book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hi, folks. Tom Krantz here. I appreciate you tuning in to my podcast, Type Tune Tint, and I especially appreciate those of you who have subscribed. I started this subscriber thing in July of 2024, really just as a way of recouping a little bit of the costs of doing this podcast. There's website hosting and there's WordPress additions, and occasionally I buy a book so that I can actually know what I'm talking about when I interview an author. You can subscribe to this podcast for as little as $3 a month. Comes off your credit card automatically. And for $3 a month, you get the satisfaction of knowing that you're helping keep this podcast going. I'm in my 5th year now, but also I will occasionally offer exclusive content just for subscribers. So give it a shot. I appreciate you taking the plunge. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. If you have any questions or comments, of course, you know how to get in touch. So please subscribe, and I appreciate it. Thanks.